For some reason, Bol Bol is one of the most polarizing players in the NBA, especially on Twitter. His supporters say he hasn't gotten a fair chance. His detractors say he hasn't been good enough to get a chance. His supporters believe in his talent, some even going as far to say he's in the same breath as Chet Holmgren or Victor Wembanyama. His detractors claim his hype is due to his high school mixtapes, highlights in garbage time, and high school hype as a top 5 recruit. It's very clear that the opinions of Bol Bol are on opposite extremes. However, what I noticed with Bol Bol on tape is that he's a clear example of ability versus functionality. But quickly before we do get into the video, if you are new and you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, hit notification bell, notified whenever I release a video. I make videos about basketball all the time, and liking and subscribing are the two best ways that can help me out in the YouTube algorithm. Let's try to get 100 likes on this video so YouTube will recommend it to others. Anyways, let's talk about Bol Bol. Now, if you watched Bol Bol highlights, you would think this guy was a superstar, doing stuff off the dribble, hitting jumpers, crazy finishes around the basket, blocking shots out of nowhere. He is a very fun highlight watch, and a lot of that is due to the fact he is a talented player that does move different from most others that tall. I never have denied the talent of Bol Bol. It's very clear that he is a talented player, dating back to his high school days. But the thing is, highlights only show the good, and they never actually tell the full picture. I could put together a mixtape or a highlight reel of Andrew Wiggins next to a highlight reel of Michael Jordan, and if you didn't know anything about basketball at all, you would think those two players are of the same caliber watching the highlights side by side. And while highlights do show that Bol Bol is talented, he is capable of crazy layups, he is capable of doing some stuff off the dribble, he can hit a jumper, he can block shots. Yes, it's crazy that somebody that tall can do the things he does as an athlete in terms of body control. It really isn't fair that someone can do things like that at his height sometimes. But the highlights don't show why Bol Bol hasn't developed into a good NBA player. But the tape and the numbers do. While the jumpers and the dribbling are showcased a ton in highlights, it's really not something he's good at, especially on an NBA court. He is a super efficient scorer in the restricted area. He shot 84% in the restricted area, albeit on only 2.6 attempts per game. However, that really isn't enough, especially on that low volume. And on top of that, with how inefficient of a player he is outside of the restricted area. He shot 36.7% on 4.2 attempts per game on any shot outside the restricted area, 31.3% on pull-up jumpers, 16.7% on step-back jumpers, 26.5% on three-pointers, 36% on mid-range attempts. Outside of finishing at the basket, and I mean very close to the basket, he is an inefficient offensive scorer. So he's not an effective offensive creator. The handles look cool in highlights, the jumpers look cool in highlights, but he isn't effective at those things at the NBA level. And that's really the Bol Bol story that's been what he is for his entire career. He has talent and skill, but he isn't able to apply those things consistently to be an effective NBA player. His handle isn't good enough to have him create off the dribble a ton. His jumper isn't good enough to have him space the floor. He also does struggle as a slasher due to a lack of strength, and his frame is one that really is hard to make him this big time paint scorer. That's why he only averages around 2.6 attempts per game in the restricted area. Really, if he wants to be an effective NBA player, he has to be a spot up shooter. He has to be a floor spacer, and he just isn't that. again, he isn't effective as an offensive player outside of the restricted area. And while he is capable of creating offense in flashes, he doesn't do it consistently because it's not a functional skill in his game. He's capable of doing it from time to time, but it's not functional enough to make a consistent part of his game. And on top of that, his motor off the ball isn't great either. I'm not saying Bol Bol doesn't do impressive things. He does have some crazy plays, ones that leave me wowed on tape, but those plays are few and far between, and clearly aren't something he can do consistently in an NBA game. Yes, he does have some pretty rare movement skills and fluidity for somebody that tall, but the thing is, that's true for a lot of NBA players now. We are seeing taller players that are super fluid with unreal movement skills. That alone isn't going to make you a good NBA player anymore. And really that hasn't been the case throughout NBA history. On top of that, he hasn't shown he can apply skill to actual game speed reps consistently. And his lack of motor really hurts him as well. I've watched him play since he was in high school. He had plays where he would look incredible. He also had plays where you wonder where he was because he just wasn't involved and wasn't interested in the play. Which is a problem when you are 7 feet tall in high school. You should never be on the court and make your presence felt at the level of not being existent when you're that tall. Especially when you do have skill, because I'm not denying Bol Bol has skill. Like, it's never been like a skill or a talent question. But the lack of motor, the lack of consistency, the lack of really putting it together, it's been a problem really since high school, and it's been a problem in the NBA as well. Defensively, he doesn't have the motor to be an anchor, even if he does have some cool blocks. He also doesn't have the strength to be a great defender either. He just doesn't really know how to put what he is capable of into a tangible ability. And there's a difference between capability and being tangible. He's just not tangible right now. He can't really apply what he's capable of consistently to a game. He is somebody that, again, has some cool highlights, but the highlights aren't a consistent part of his game. He's somebody that isn't effective outside of the restricted area, which is a problem when you are a player that doesn't really have the strength to be a paint presence like that. And also not having the motor on defense isn't good either. Bol Bol is the perfect example of an idea being a lot better than a reality. The idea is the 7'2" forward that can create off the dribble, hit jumpers, and block shots. The reality is he can do those things in flashes, but he hasn't shown he can be an efficient player or effective player doing those things because he can't do them consistently. I never really liked the comparisons of Bol Bol to Victor Wembanyama or Chet Holmgren. Victor has proven his skills are tangible, the handle is legit, the offensive creation is real, and he can apply what he's capable of doing onto the court consistently and have it be functional. And Chet Holmgren also just had a much higher motor than Bol Bol probably has ever had. And Chet is also the best one-and-done shot blocking prospect since maybe Anthony Davis. On top of that, Chet is a better shooter and a better passer as well. Bol Bol has talent. That's very clear. He can do some wild things on the court. But he never has been able to consistently do those things on an NBA court. And I do acknowledge that this was his first season getting real minutes. I do understand that game speed reps are extremely valuable for development. And to be fair to Bol Bol, he hasn't gotten those until this past season. But the thing is, his minutes fell pretty dramatically throughout the season in Orlando to the point where he really wasn't even a consistent rotation guy by the end of the season. with the Magic, and I think it had a lot to do with the lack of consistency in his game. The lack of really anything scoring-wise outside the restricted area, and not having the motor on defense. It's hard to give him minutes when you have a Paulo Banchero, who is a better player, significantly better. A Wendell Carter Jr., a much better player. And those guys are young as well. You know, Paulo is younger than Bol Bol, and Wendell is around the same age as Bol Bol. And they're both flat out better, so he's not going to get minutes over those guys. Franz Wagner, another player, if you want to play Bol Bol at the 3, which I don't think you should. I don't think he has a skill level to play the 3. But even then, Franz is a much better player. So it's just hard to give him minutes over those guys when he can't really score outside the restricted area and doesn't have the motor on defense. Bol Bol is capable of everything he does in highlights. The highlights wouldn't exist if he couldn't. He is a talented player. Very talented, in fact. Talented enough to be a 5-star recruit. Talented enough to get drafted into the NBA. But the thing is, in the NBA, being capable isn't enough. It's about consistently being able to do those things. And Bol Bol hasn't shown he can consistently do those things. It's why he hasn't really worked out in the NBA. He's not a bad basketball player. I'm not even trying to suggest anything close to that. He still is among the best players in the world, even if he's not a great NBA player. Compared to the average human being, he is absolutely incredible. And if he played any of us in an open run, he would absolutely fry us, and it wouldn't even be close. He is very talented, but everyone in the NBA is very talented. And it's clear that it takes more than talent to be great. Now, I'm not saying Bol Bol is done in the NBA. He's going to have a great mentor in Kevin Durant in Phoenix, and we could look back on this video and laugh about how wrong I was. If he has a breakout campaign and proves to be an effective NBA player this upcoming season. But it's also very clear that he has a lot to improve on to be an effective NBA player. He needs to be more locked in and play with a higher motor. He needs to improve his jump shot, and I actually think improving his jump shot is the key to him lasting in the NBA. He also needs to get stronger. I don't think it's realistic to believe he could be Victor or Chet, because those guys are even more talented than he is, and also have way more consistency in what they can do on the court, play with a higher motor, and also this higher feel for the game players. But I do think there is a world where Bol Bol does prove himself. I'm not overly optimistic that he will do it, but only time will tell at the end of the day. I'm hoping for the best. I hope he does prove me wrong, but he really hasn't shown me anything to suggest that up to this point. But that's the end of this video. If you made it to this point, thank you so much. Again, haven't already, like, subscribe, hit notification bell, notified whenever I release a video. I make videos about basketball all the time, so if you enjoy basketball, I really think you would enjoy this channel, and liking and subscribing are the two best ways to help me out in the YouTube algorithm. Helps when people find my videos, so in turn, help the channel grow so I can make more content for you guys in the future. Let me know what you think about Bol Bol in the comment section below. Again, let's try and get 100 likes on this video so YouTube will recommend it to others. This is a video that's a bit different. I try not to be overly negative about players when I make videos, but this is something that I've seen so much on Twitter, and it's been kind of bothering me, so I felt like I just need to make a video about it to give my full thoughts instead of limiting myself to what I could put on Twitter. So that's why I made this video. Again, leave your thoughts about Bol Bol in the comment section below. But with that being said, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.